There was a period there around 1997 or so where people like Paul Krugman of the New York Times and others were questioning whether or not this internet thing was going to survive, or was it just a fad?
Fax machine.
And then we saw that hockey stick moment. That's the character of exponential growth. Is that you've got that doubling effect, that factoring, that exponential growth. And so now, I think we're at that hockey stick moment where you see in the next 6 to 9 months doubling of usage from 150 million to 300 million, and then pretty soon we're going to be over $1 billion, and then Bitcoin will be ubiquitous and entrenched and part of everyday life, and people won't even be thinking about it. They'll be using it, but they won't even know they're using it. Just like people use the internet and they don't really think about the protocol that underlies the internet and how it works and why it works. They just use it. Same thing with Bitcoin. It just becomes part of the fabric of our reality.
Yeah.
It's happening really fast, but it has a price, and that is what people focus on. And if it's not moving in any given minute of every given day in the direction people want it to move, it becomes like, oh my God, this is not happening as fast as I would. With the internet, it wasn't actually a price that was traded in terms of the where it was in the adoption cycle. Having said that, I'm sure a lot of people would have loved to have the opportunity to actually buy part of the internet, which is what you can do with Bitcoin. You're actually buying something as big as the internet, as ubiquitous as the internet, but you're actually able to own a piece of it. So that's the big difference, and that is what is remarkable in a lot of ways. Well, the design of the protocol invites everyone to join, and it also invites attacks, and the game theoretical aspects of it are intact, and they're working beautifully. So you want as many people to be participating as possible. You want both Russia and Ukraine buying Bitcoin. You want every country to be buying it. You want Wall Street buying it. You want Wall Street trading it. You want Wall Street creating all the derivatives they want to create on top of the Bitcoin stack. The greatest thing we have, though, is the ability to pull our keys off the exchanges. So if they want to create a multi-tiered Ponzi scheme based on a Bitcoin base layer like they do in the gold market, for example, which hasn't had good price discovery now for over 10, 15 years, we have the ability to pull the private keys off the exchange essentially and collapse any major Ponzi scheme. There will be credit cycles. I mean, Bitcoin will still be used as collateral. There's a lot of products here that are being introduced for mortgages and other types of leveraged products, and that's fine. It's pristine collateral. Michael Saylor is now, borrowing against his Bitcoin position at
to buy Bitcoin.
To buy Bitcoin. So he's engaged in what I've said many times. Is basically he's engaged in a leveraged attack against the dollar, a speculative attack against the U.S. dollar, because if you can borrow money at these artificially low rates that the central banks have kept so low as part of a failed bank policy now for years, and you can buy Bitcoin, you're going to exploit this incredible arbitrage between the central bank totally mishandling policy for over 20 years now, and the presence of this pristine, perfect money Bitcoin. And so Michael Saylor sees that, and he's taking advantage of that. When I talked to Ricardo Salinas Pliego about this, he said he's 60% Bitcoin, and I'm like, well, that's a baby position. You need to get 120% Bitcoin. Everything you have, you need to put it up as collateral and go all in. And he kind of laughed at that. But it's hard to argue with a guy while you're on his jet. Clearly, he's doing something right.
Yeah. What's the world look like when Bitcoin becomes global currency, when hyper-Bitcoinization, Bitcoin standard?
Fractionalization, just like the protocol is decentralized, so too will the world and the powers of the world, the countries of the world, and the people of the world. So we're going to have, if you look at an old map of the United States from 200 years ago, there were something like 150 nations in America, of Native Americans. Yeah. And that's where we're going back to. We're going to go back to thousands of nations around the world running they're micronations, but everyone will be on a Bitcoin standard. So it'll be very holistic, very organic, be able to trade with everyone, will be able to trade with each other with perfect money. There'll be very little violence because Bitcoin monetizes peace and love, and it demonetizes war and hate. I've explained why that is before, because it's unconfiscatable. So you cannot use violence, like Paul Krugman suggests, to take other countries' stuff. You have to approach them with something on offer that they're willing to trade with. In this case, it would be with Bitcoin. So that's where we're heading. We're heading to decentralization breeds more decentralization, and you want diversity, you want biodiversity. We're leaving hopefully an era where everything became monocultures. The U.S. is experimenting with the monoculture of what's called cultural Marxism. Well, the volcano bond in El Salvador can pay off the IMF loans, pay off all the loans. El Salvador can be a completely debt-free country with volcano bonds, and that's a threat to the U.S. dollar because it means that if El Salvador can escape U.S. hegemonic power and the colonialization in the Central America and Latin America, then so can all these other countries do the same thing. Honduras, by the way, was going to declare Bitcoin legal tender at this conference. They got wind of it down there in the IMF and in Washington, D.C. D.C. sent in a plane load of suits to Honduras, threatened to kill everybody there unless they chose to make a different decision. So it was the economic hitmen showed up in Honduras threatening violence, as Paul Krugman of the New York Times has said.
Since the 1960s and 70s.
It's the same game show. And, they'll be in charge. So America has to decide, do we want to be taking orders from other countries because we don't like balls? Or are we going to man up and say we have balls and we're not going to take orders from India, China, Russia, and Iran? We're at the risk of being a subservient housekeeping, houseboys, rent boys. There's a nation of rent boys in America that'll be servicing Iranian, Chinese, Russian, and Indian men and women. That's what we're going to end up doing, Scott. Unless we get fucking our balls out and start to be, represent that we have values here. So Bitcoin, everything about Bitcoin represents everything that you would find in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and everything that we have fought for in this country for over 240 years. So the easy thing to do is just to buy Bitcoin, accumulate Bitcoin, promote Bitcoin, and it's like having balls. If you're a woman and you want to have balls and you want to compete like a man, buy Bitcoin. If you're a man and you want to stop being without balls,
or just have bigger ones.
Have bigger balls. Buy Bitcoin, and you will take care of your gonad problem. So Bitcoin are basically our balls. That's I think what we're saying here, Scott.